Hello everybody, Eric Sorensen here with Paradigm Growth. I'm so excited to be with you today. Today we're going to be talking about digital marketing strategies that drive opportunities to your practice and how to create a new opportunity for your leads that educates and converts them to patients that are ready to start treatment. It is great to have you all here. We're so excited that you are joining us for this webinar. As promised, we're going to dive in some detailed strategies to really help your practice grow. Now, just so you know, I'm also a practice owner as well. And so one of the great things about what we do is we test all of our campaigns in my practices prior to deploying them to our clients. So we spend a lot of time really testing, improving, and validating everything that we're doing here so that we're not just throwing you an idea that hasn't been proven or that doesn't work. We're giving you proven strategies that really can help grow your practice. And they're quite a bit different from traditional models that are out there. So I'm really excited that we're here. I want to tell you a little bit about who we are. Again, I'm Eric Sorensen, co-founder. I've also been involved in the marketing and advertising world for about 18 years. I owned an advertising agency for many years and helped not only hearing healthcare practices, but different businesses across the country to help grow their businesses. And it was just an awesome opportunity to be able to be involved in so many aspects of marketing. Nick Weber as well. He is our business development and growth ninja. He was with Cycle for quite a while, as some of you know, and he's been in the hearing healthcare world for, 15 years or so. So he has a wealth of knowledge, and it's so excited to be in partnership with Nick. He is a great guy. He's a good, honest guy, has a high level of integrity, which to me is the most important thing when it comes to what we are doing. Just a quick bit about what Paradigm Growth is. We are focused solely on growing private practice, but not only growing private practice from our client side. Part of the reason why we do these webinars is because we want to give the opportunity for other practices, whether or not they're clients, to use some of these strategies that we know work to help elevate the entire level of what we're trying to do. Because really, we're trying to move an entire industry. We're really trying to provide value to the industry, especially to private practice, so that they have the latest strategies. And again, I'm really excited to be broadcasting from Oahu. A little over a year ago, my wife and I bought a home here. We're sitting in my living room here in the home, and I'm heading home back to Utah tomorrow. And it's just been an awesome joy to be able to come out here and be in this amazing place. And it's just the place that I like to come to be able to think clearly. And I can't think of a better place to broadcast the webinar than from here. Normally we are in our studio back in the office and doing these webinars from there. So we get a little bit of a treat today where we're in beautiful Oahu, and I'm looking out here at this beautiful beach just out the window here. So it's just a fantastic, beautiful place. Let's jump in then. And we're going to talk about 3 keys. Number 1, how to generate opportunities and turn them into qualified, educated leads. Number 2, how to properly lead opportunities through the right journey so they convert at a higher rate. Number 3, how to start treatment well before the patient is ever fit, making for an easier and evaluation process. And as part of that, we're going to be going over the traditional way that it's done in hearing healthcare and in private practice. And some of you may be a step above what the traditional way is. I hope you are, because there's a lot better strategy out there. And also, we want to make sure that with these 3 keys here, that you have what you need to be able to create a blueprint for your practice so that you can deploy these strategies, whether or not you're a client here. And that's really the goal here. Okay. They say that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. However, the second best time to plant a tree is today. So if you're like me, I'm very impatient. I learn something new or a new strategy, and I think, man, I wish I had this 6 months ago because I want this in place in my practice today. And I wish it was that way. I spent a significant amount of time, especially in the early mornings, reading books. I think I've read, 25 books in the last 4 months or so, to really educate myself so that I can be the best I possibly can for our clients. I feel like I have a duty to them to be on the top of my game, to provide the right balance of strategy, innovation, and technology, and really live at that intersection so that we can provide growth. So that's really what it's about. And I'm excited to share these tools with you because it's going to be a lot of fun. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the domino effect. This is something that I learned from a online guru. His name is Russell Brunson, for those of you who may have heard of him. But the domino effect essentially is this principle. think about this in your practice. As a practice owner and as a business, what is the one thing you offer that if they, meaning your patients, believed it, all other objections would be overcome? In other words, if I can make them believe that my new opportunity is the key to what they want most and my solution is the only solution that will solve it, then all other objections are irrelevant and they have to start treatment with me. So if you get a chance, we're not going to have time to dive into creative and messaging. That's actually a different webinar that we'll be announcing here shortly. But if you can think of that one thing that creates a new opportunity, and that's the key to what they, meaning your patient, wants most, and that your solution is the only solution that will solve it, then all other objections are irrelevant and they have to start treatment with you. If any of you read The Blue Ocean Strategy, it's a fantastic book and it's about businesses that go into a new category. Think of somebody like Tesla that went into the automotive business to do electric cars and really disrupted that industry. They didn't just create a better gas car, they created a new category within the automotive world. So Blue Ocean Strategy really is about going in and creating something new, even though, yeah, you're in hearing healthcare, but what is the new opportunity that you can present to your patients from a marketing standpoint and internally as well that can really set you apart and differentiate you? And we're gonna be going over some of that today. Well, the Blue Ocean Strategy talks about, okay, well, that happens with one, but then all of these other competitive businesses see what's going on and they jump into the blue ocean and try to compete and try to duplicate that model. And pretty soon it's like sharks swimming around in this blue ocean, and the ocean turns red because of all the sharks biting each other, and all of a sudden you're in a red ocean. So if you're in a red ocean, and my guess is that about 90%, 95% of you are in a red ocean, it's time to jump out of that red ocean. It's time to create a new opportunity for your practice. It's time to be different. It's time to differentiate yourself from what everybody else is doing. That doesn't mean you abandon principles and strategies that works, because if you know me well, it's you need to follow what works, which is why we're continually testing and proving what works. But you have to position yourself in a new blue ocean, creating a new opportunity for your patients that perhaps that others are not offering, and differentiate yourself and unlock what I love to call your practice superpowers, which usually are the superpowers of the practice owner. So really there's something inside of all of you that screams out, you know, I need to be doing this, or I can be different, or I was born to do this. And that's what you need to do, is really create and develop that talent that's already inside of you. So we're going to go, for me, in Paradigm, for example, my statement, my domino effect is if I can get my clients to believe that the only way to experience significant growth is through the use of new strategy, innovation, and technology, and that it can only be achieved properly by deployed by Paradigm, then all other options are irrelevant and they have to sign up with me. So again, we're not going to have much time to go over the domino effect or creative strategy. So if you get a chance, think about that and really write down what that statement is for you, because that's really going to help you develop a messaging strategy and really develop what that blue ocean is for you. The problem is in our process, it's really tough to talk to a patient that has had an entire life of false beliefs and perceptions of hearing aids or hearing devices. They come into you, and in 90 minutes, you've got to really replace those years and years of false beliefs and build value in what you do. And of course, the hope is that they leave with a fit date or a same-day fit if you do same-day fittings. That is not easy to do in 90 minutes. Let me ask you this question. What if that could be done much, much earlier? What if replacing those false beliefs and educating and leading and guiding, I call it trailblazing, having them follow the right journey and the right mapping before they ever show up to your treatment room? So that's something we're going to talk about today in digital marketing strategy that's really going to be helpful. So let's continue here and dive in. I want to talk a little bit about the patient process here. And before I talk about the patient process, remember that marketing is a battle of perceptions, not a battle of products. And we'll talk about that again a little bit later on. But I want to reinforce how important that point is. I'll give you a quick example of this. So I took my car to the car wash the other day, and it was very dirty. Are you just like me, where you absolutely hate driving around with a messy car, a dirty car? I just can't stand it. Somebody convinced me in buying this car with these white leather seats, and so they get dirty really fast. Fortunately, they wipe off really well, but man, when I see that dirt, especially from my kids jumping in the car, it drives me crazy. So I go to the car wash, I wash the car, I come out the other side, and I do a little vacuuming out, and it's one of those places where it has a car wash and free vacuums, and I wipe down the seats, and everything looks fantastic again, and I drive away. And I swear to you, the car drove better. It felt funner to drive. It felt nicer. It felt more smooth on the road. I felt better being in the car. And I laugh at myself because we all know, and have any of you ever experienced this before, we all absolutely know that not a single thing changed about the car except for the fact that it was dirty and now it's clean. But it didn't drive better. I didn't change the wheels. I didn't do anything to the drivetrain. It was the exact same car, but 10 minutes after the car wash, it seemed to drive like a new car. That's a good example of perceptions. Remember, our perceptions are our reality. Your patient's perceptions are your patient's reality, because the world really is not the way that it is. The world is the way that they think that it is in their mind. And so you have to remember, when you're talking to your patients through marketing, especially online, you really need to be talking to them in a way that they want to be spoken to. Because not necessarily the way that you think that they want to be spoken to. Later on, we'll go touch on just briefly how you can do that through digital marketing strategies. But I want you to be thinking about that when you're talking about the patient process and how you really can start that earlier, and how digital marketing really ties into that. So we're going to continue on going here. Let's talk a little bit about the traditional method, and I hope you can see this okay. We're going to do a little bit of a whiteboarding session, and I apologize in advance because my handwriting is absolutely terrible, and so I hope that you can read this. Sorry, Nick, as you're watching this, he's like, oh no, he's not going to actually write because nobody's going to be able to read it. And Nick, you're absolutely right. That is very, very true. Okay, so we're going to talk about the traditional method, and just so you don't have to see me spell or anything, I'm just going to make this really easy here. So the traditional method of this. The traditional method of digital marketing is you put an ad out there. Maybe it's Google AdWords, maybe it's a Facebook ad, whatever channels that you're running. You put an ad out on the digital space somewhere. And there's really two ways traditionally that practices have them contact you, or rather have the patients be able to flow to you. And that is either they can go to your website, right? Or they can call your clinic. I told you, I have kids that are very, very talented in drawing, and they did not get that from me. So you've got your ad here, right? And maybe the ad clicks through to the website, they go to the website and they have a bunch of information there, or if you're lucky, they will call you and set up an appointment. Now, you probably know, if you're doing any digital marketing at all, that most of them will not call you. About 98% of those ads, probably even 99+% of all the impressions that you have with that ad will not call you. Some of them will click to your website at 1 to 4%, depending on how well you're doing with it. Hopefully 5% if your click-through rate's really high. But they usually don't call you. If they call you, great, you set up an appointment and you're off to the races. However, most of them will click through to your website. And the problem with clicking through to your website is, have you looked at most hearing healthcare clinic websites? There is a lot of information. So you're really spending all of this money trying to drive a ton of traffic to your website, and you're really excited because you have great analytics because you drove 400 users to your website, and then how many of them converted and went to your clinic and actually became patients? How many of them went from your website to here? Do you have a form on there? Do you have your phone number? Obviously is going to be on there, but are there other ways for them to get there? Not only that, but when they go here, there's so much information. Is there information that tells them why they need to come to your clinic today? Why it is so important that they treat their hearing loss? Is it consistent with the ad that pulled them into the website? And traditionally speaking, it's not. Traditionally, you send them to the website and there's so much information that's not necessarily in harmony with what the advertising is. Yeah, maybe your logo's on there and the look and feel is the same, but that's a really tough thing. And in fact, I was with a client the other day and I was asking her about her website. And she was all excited because she was running a digital marketing plan, and she had sent, I think it was something like 400 or 500 people to her website. And I asked her the question, how many of them converted to appointments? How many of them converted to patients? And she had no idea, of course, but she was all excited about all this traffic. And when I was an advertising agency owner, and our clients would come to us, and we would be spending millions of dollars on these big ad campaigns for pretty large Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 businesses. And you're talking about a significant amount of traffic, and we would hang our hats on that traffic. But as I realized, as I gained a lot of experience, that traffic is great, and there is some value for exposing yourself as much as possible to your marketplace and be everywhere, absolutely, because the one thing you don't want is obscurity. You want awareness. However, one of the challenges with that is that how many of them actually convert to appointments. So when I'm running a campaign, impressions great. I don't even care about the impressions, to be honest with you. I care how many appointments happened here. How many either called, or how many filled out a form. How much information did we capture through this process? The problem is the traditional method, this is a very difficult way to capture information, because yeah, you might get a lot of clicks to your website, but most of them are probably not converting, as you know. So there is a better way. And here are some of the challenges. As I mentioned, one, you're sending them to your website, which I mentioned why that can be a problem, because it's not streamlined, and a lot of them just don't convert. You're prompting them to call the clinic, which is great, except for the fact that then they come in for their appointment and you only have 90 minutes to replace a lifetime of false beliefs and build value. Also, the journey is not specific to what's important to them. Think about that. For example, right here, if you have an ad on tinnitus, right, and you send them to your landing page, or excuse me, your website here, and they have to find out through some of your links where tinnitus actually is, they're not going to spend the time. The worst thing that you can have is a confused buyer. If they're confused, they just, especially the demographic that we're working with, the age demographic, they're just going to move on. So it's really important that the journey is specific to what's important to them. You're also not building value. All you're doing is serving up an ad and sending them to your page. You haven't really done anything for them before that they're showing up. And you're not really replacing false beliefs with this traditional model. So let's talk about how to improve this traditional model here. So there's two things you can do. You can improve this traditional model, or what you can do is you can create a new opportunity, which we'll talk about both. So there's a couple of things. You can replace this ad with better messaging, right? You can improve this overall part right here. You can target a better audience, adults 65 to 80 or whatever it happens to be. You can also improve your website and make it amazing and stellar. You could also put more ads here, so you can spend a lot more money here if you want to, and blow this up. The problem is all you're going to get is a higher cost, right? And you're going to get lower conversions. Because the problem isn't necessarily the ad, the problem is the process completely, that it's tough because the journey is not specific. You're sending it to a website where there's so much information that it's confusing for them, and more ads would just exacerbate that whole thing, as you see here on the screen. So that leads to higher costs and lower conversions. There is a better way. So let's talk about a better way, which is what I call the growth journey model. Now, if any of you ever gone camping before, I remember I used to go camping with my family. Every single year we would go to this lake in the Uintas. It's about 10,500 feet, so it's way up there. And we would go to this place, as I mentioned, Spirit Lake, and about 2 miles away from Spirit Lake in the Uintas is a lake called Tamarack Lake. I don't know if any of you have ever been there, but it is like one of the most beautiful places on earth. Outside of this amazing, beautiful place here in Oahu. Well, when I was a kid, we would take that 2-mile hike to Tamarack Lake, and it was like really, really dense forest. So it was pretty easy to get lost in that area if you didn't really know what you were doing, because the trail wasn't necessarily that specific and it wasn't that carved out. But I noticed something kind of interesting. I noticed on the trees, obviously you've got pine trees with bark, but I noticed that there had been carved out something that looked like a little person almost, right here on a tree in front of you. And then 100 yards, there was another one, and maybe 50 yards, there's another one, and another 150 yards, there's another one. And my dad taught me that those are trailblazers. And what they are is, I'm sure you all know this, right? What they are is they are a detailed map to lead you on to the journey to get to your destination. right? So all I knew as a kid that I would never get lost, because all I had to do was look for those trailblazers and look for them on the trees and follow from one tree to the next, to the next, to the next, until I was able to get to my destination. They led me safely and properly to where I wanted to go. And that's very important. Now, are you leading your patients to where you want them to go? Because you're talking about a mindset that your patients have and a lot of false beliefs that needs to be changed. So how do you replace those false beliefs? How do you take a lifetime, as I've mentioned before, of the stigma of hearing aids perhaps, or what they've heard from other people, or price, which is always an issue and always an obstacle? How do you overcome some of those things before they ever show up to your practice? Well, you can do it through the growth journey model. So let's dive in here. Again, I apologize for my handwriting here, because hopefully you'll be able to see this well. Okay, so the growth journey model starts similar to what the traditional is, and that is that you have an ad, right? However, there's a big difference here. Let's call this type of an ad, a lead gen ad. So for example, on Facebook, you can place a lead generation ad, and in that, you have copy and images, and you have maybe a sign up or learn more button here. You've seen them, right? You click on that, and then it actually asks you for your information, your name, your email address, and your phone number, right? So that's already a better way to be able to place an ad and actually capture information of that patient. Because once you have that information, you can use that for valuable marketing down the road if they don't convert and if they don't set up an appointment in your clinic here, right? So, however, this is the great thing. They still have the option to call in the traditional method, right? Your phone number is going to be on there somewhere. And they have an option to click through to your website. But instead of sending them to your website, send them to a landing page. Create a trailblazer mapping. Create a journey for them that tells them where to go and what to do. And there's a few things about this, but we'll call this a landing page. Now, for example, if they're specifically looking for something about tinnitus. So if they're looking for information on tinnitus and this ad talks about tinnitus, we send them to a landing page that gives specific information on tinnitus. It starts educating them on tinnitus, and it answers the question, why should I start treatment with you here at this clinic? And that's really important that you're building that mindset. And it's important that these are all consistent and everything that you're doing is creating the right mindset for the patient. So you're going to take it a step further, however. Now you have their email address and you have their phone number. That's sent to you, of course, to contact them. Some of you may be doing this through Facebook leads. So there's another opportunity for you to call them and to get them on your calendar, on your schedule. However, let's take it a step further. Let's start building value. Let's start educating them. Let's start nurturing them. Let's start leading them through their journey. Let's start creating an experience before they ever show up. Let's then build your trust and your authority, and most importantly, differentiate yourself from what everybody else is doing. And here's how you can do that. So you then, since you have that information, start creating a sequence of education and information that you send them. Let's say you send them a series of 3 emails. This is about tinnitus. This is about information about why that they should start treatment with you. Maybe here you're talking about testimonials of those with tinnitus that are struggling with what that patient was struggling with. And you're educating them all along the way through email 1, 2, and 3. Not only that, but why not send them physically in the mail an info kit on your practice? And of course, also answer the question, why should I treat my tinnitus with your clinic here? Why would that be important? So not only are you have better information and copy, you're capturing their information, you have the opportunity to call them, they have the opportunity to call you, but you're sending them to a landing page that has consistent messaging with the ad that you have out there. But not only that, but immediately after they enter their information, they're getting a welcome email from you. They're getting information on tinnitus. They're getting information on your clinic, and you're leading them down the path, down the right trail, all the way to set up an appointment with your clinic. But not only that, But as you're educating them and as you're leading them along the way and as you're positioning yourself as the authority and the leader in your marketplace, you're now creating an experience for them. And you're building value because you're giving them value by giving them great educational materials, by talking about what's important to them. And you're doing this well before they ever show up to your clinic. Now, here's the cool thing about this. When you're doing this the right way, you've got a touch point here, you've got a touch point here, here, and maybe even here if you call them or if they call you. You're talking about, what is that, 7 or so touch points versus a traditional model, which is going to be 1 or 2. So now you have 7 opportunities to create a mindset, to replace false beliefs, to educate, nurture, show them the love, show them the experience that you can have at your clinic. And you're talking about a much better way to do this versus the traditional digital marketing model. And you can do this automatically through an automation system. We built an automation system, of course, inside of Paradigm, which was very important to us because automation has so much power. You don't have to deal with it. It happens automatically. It's all integrated, which is fantastic. Or you can send the emails yourself. You've got their email. You can have them queued up ready to go. And once you get that lead in, you can send those out yourself if you want to as well. So you just need to really nurture them along. And of course, all of this information here needs to come from your clinic, from your branding, from your voice. It's better even if it's personalized, if it's coming from you as a clinic owner, or if it's coming from the provider specifically, or the audiologist that's at your clinic. So that way you're showing great personal attention to your patient and showing them the love throughout the process. It is so powerful. We can tell dramatically the difference between a patient that comes in for a new eval that goes through this process here versus one that doesn't. They're more ready, they're more educated, price isn't as big of an issue, your treatment rate goes up, and your ASP goes up. So I'm going to show you another way to do this, another example of this, and we'll call it a traffic campaign, because a lot of you are probably running just traffic campaigns. So let's say you have an ad out on AdWords, right? Okay, so you've got great content here that's pulling them in, that hopefully is going to be consistent with the mindset that you want them to have when they come into your clinic, right? You send them to this landing page or lead funnel, right? And the landing page, let's say they want information on dementia, and you send them to a landing page that's about the risks of not treating their hearing loss and why it's so important that they do, including the risks of dementia. And of course, you capture, perhaps you even send them a free report on dementia, a free report that they can download. And to download it, they have to give you your name and their email address and their phone number. So once you have that, boom, you now can call them from your clinic, right? They also can have the opportunity to call you through the phone number that's listed on your landing page and perhaps on your ad as well. And then you capture their information, and now you can start nurturing them about the risks of untreated hearing loss, the risks of dementia. 1, 2, 3, maybe it's 4 sequences here. You can send them something physical in the mail as well about that. And all of a sudden, you are leading them on a journey and educating them and nurturing them, as I mentioned, rather than just hoping that this ad works. As you know, hope isn't a great plan. There is a lot of strategy in this. And when you think about when you buy something, think about the process that you go through. When you're talking about a high ticket item, there's a difference. Most of us don't necessarily walk in and buy a brand new BMW, right? We've done our homework, we educate ourselves, we learn. Maybe it takes us a few years. I know my grandfather, when he would buy a car, he would take 2 years to buy a car. That's a long journey for him to make a decision to write a check for a $30,000 car. For example, a few weeks ago, I really wanted to learn how to do better videos for some of our online videos that we were posting. And so I was looking into a drone. And if any of you have ever seen drone footage, it's like fantastic. For me, having been involved in producing commercials for years and years at our advertising agency, to get the drone footage that we can get now, we used to have to either use a boom or we had to use a helicopter, which would cost $1,000 an hour plus to rent a helicopter to get that same type of footage that a drone can get today. And we've advanced so far, it's so much easier now to get fantastic footage. But I mean, we were producing commercials that were, $100,000 for a 30-second commercial, and using this high-tech equipment to be able to do that. Well, so I wanted it to get a drone so I could get some better footage. And so I walked into Best Buy and I saw this drone called the Mavic 2. It had just come out. This is just a few months ago. And I went in, and the package that I needed was about $2,000. And I'm like, oh my goodness, $2,000. And I walked out. And that was it. Well, then I did a little online searching. I put my information into some ads that I saw, and I immediately started receiving nurturing. I immediately started receiving education. I started receiving videos that were showing me how cool it was. And then I started searching out myself, and I started getting really excited about what this drone could do and the level of production value that it could bring to what we were trying to do at Paradigm. So this was just awesome for me to be able to see this. And a couple of weeks later, sure enough, I walked back into Best Buy. In 5 minutes, I spent the $2,000, I left, and I'm sure that the sales agent in there was thinking, oh man, this guy was an easy sale. He probably just came off the street, was interested. He had no idea the process that I had gone through from the very beginning, a couple of weeks of learning and educating myself and getting information. I was being nurtured through the email sequences that DJI, which owns Mavic, was sending me. I was getting nurtured through videos that they were sending me. I was getting nurtured through some of my online searches. I was getting educated. And by the time I was ready, I knew exactly what I wanted, why I wanted, and it was an easy process, and I walked in and it took me 5 minutes to buy. Think about when you bought a high-ticket item and the process that you go through, because remember, we buy emotionally and then we justify logically. Have you ever done that? Have you ever done that with your significant other? I have to have this because I have to have this new Tesla because guess what? It gets 141 miles to the gallon, and it's going to be so much easier to drive because it has autopilot, so I can do work on the freeway while I'm driving the car, right? That's what we tell our spouses, but I want a Tesla because they're awesome. They're amazing. Like, they drive themselves. How cool is that? It has all this cool tech into it, and it updates itself like an iPhone. We buy emotionally and we justify logically. So think about that with your patients. They do the same thing. They buy emotionally and they justify logically. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the growth journey model. Here's some things that it does. Number one, it provides value from the very first touch point. Let me ask you a question. When does treatment start? Some of you may think, okay, treatment starts obviously when you fit the patient, right? And maybe 60 days down the road, they're at full prescription. That's when treatment starts. What if treatment starts with the very first touch point? Treatment really should start from the first ad or the first time that they come to your website. You need to provide value from the very first touch point that they see. And all of that value and all of the content and the branding in that has to be very consistent with the mindset that you need to set and create for your practice. Number two, the growth journey educates the patients. I know we've kind of been over this. It replaces false beliefs, which is super important, and we'll talk about the false beliefs in a little bit more detail in just a minute. It creates an experience, and the experience is so important. If you've ever gone through the Disney Institute, or if you've ever learned about companies that provide a great experience like Ritz-Carlton, it is amazing what an experience can do. And if you want fantastic, positive online reviews, create an experience before they ever show up to your practice. It positions you as a leader and the authority. And of course, the biggest thing is it differentiates you from everybody else. Think about this. Is there much of a difference between the products that you, quote, sell, right, and what your competitors down the street are carrying? If they're with Oticon or with Signia or with Widex or with Phonak or Unitron, they're likely carrying the exact same products that you carry, right? So how, if you're carrying the same products, do you differentiate yourself? And I'm sure you already have some awesome answers, but we're also going to dive into that and talk a little bit about that. I'm going to repeat this. Marketing is a battle of perceptions, not a battle of products and services. So let's talk a little bit about the value that you provide. And I want to ask you a question. Knowing that you see this growth journey mapped out, and by the way, I can send you the blueprints for this so that you can see how you can set this up for your practice. But knowing the value, is there more value in the device that you fit or more value in the service that you as an audiologist or an HIS provide? Think about that. really the value comes from you as a provider, right? Because the device by itself, I mean, they could order online and get a hearing device to their mail and try to fit it, but every single one of you has dealt with that in your practice, and what do? Obviously you do it the right way, and you can replace it with something of value, which only you can provide. Your recommendation has more value than the cost of a device would ever have. Your treatment plan has more value than the cost of a device could ever have. Your long-term patient care has more value. You're educating. You went to school for a very, very long time to be able to do this the right way. There is so much value that you bring to the table, a lot more so than the device than the cost of the device that you carry. So we're going to talk a little bit about value. But first, before we go into it, let's talk about the false beliefs that patients have. False belief number one, you sell hearing aids. And some of you are saying, well, yeah, I sell hearing aids. But do you really? Yes, of course, you fit patients with hearing devices. But do you really sell hearing aids? Is it really about the device, or is it about the treatment plan? Is it about how the prescription is done, how it's programmed, how you do aftercare, how you're continually updating, cleaning, and checking, and doing annual hearing tests, and continually adjusting the patient's treatment plan throughout their journey? So what's more valuable, the device itself again, or what you do? Another false belief, they're really expensive. Well, if you're talking about just price, they are expensive. The stigma of them, that's a big one. What they've heard from other people, we get that all the time. Or it won't work for me, or a false belief that there's probably dozens and dozens of these other false beliefs out there. Now, this is something that I want to ingrain in your mind. This is by Dan Kennedy, who is a online marketing guru, not online, but a direct response marketing guru. If you can't be the lowest price in your market, then being the second lowest priced has no strategic advantage. Let that set in for a minute. If you can't be the lowest price in your market, then being the second lowest price has no strategic advantage, right? So let's talk a little bit about this. So we're going to do a little bit more whiteboarding. I apologize, you're going to have to sit through this and talk about value and false beliefs. So obviously value is when the benefit equals the cost of the service or product that you're selling, right? It has to be equal to or greater to. So you're really bringing a patient up a value ladder. So if you're doing that prior to them ever showing up to your practice, then a lot of the work can be done right up front. So for example, let's talk about false beliefs. If somebody calls you and says, hey, what is the price of a hearing device? And maybe somebody on the phone says, oh, on the low end, $3,000, on the high end, maybe it's $7,000, right? And then of course the patient says, okay, thank you very much, click, that's it. If you talk about somebody that's doing the same thing, OTC, if they call Costco or if they go online and look for pricing, what are they going to get? Oh, for the same thing, $1,900, maybe it's to $2,900, whatever it is, or less, right? Because I've seen pricing all across the board. Which one is going to win in this scenario here? If price is the only thing that's important to a patient, then what's going to win? I mean, obviously this OTC is going to win every single time, right? Why? Because if you're talking about the price of a device, then the lowest price is always going to win. However, we're not talking about a price. How do we replace those false beliefs? So there's a couple of things that we need to talk about here. And I'll give you an example here. We have a KPI app that probably most of you know about. It's an awesome app that shows your clinic condition, shows how many opportunities that you have on the schedule, what your treatment rate is, your treatment rate by provider. It shows you ASP, revenue by provider, your cost of goods, all of this, and it's fully integrated with your OMS. So it sends this data every single day and updates your app. So every day you know exactly where you stand. And the whole goal with this was to answer the question, how do you know where you're going if you don't know where you are, right? So that's really important. So knowing that, there's a couple of things that I wanted to show you. If I was to say, okay, I've got this really cool app, right? And it's a KPI app, it'll show you your KPIs daily. What would you expect to pay for something like that? Well, what do apps cost online? $5, $10, $30? Well, this is a business app, so you probably expect it to be more. Maybe you think it's, $30 to $40 a month, right? For a monthly subscription, since this is living and breathing. Okay, well, what if initially I told you that this app costs $5,000? Now, just so you know, the app does not cost $5,000, but I'm showing a point here. So if I told you the app costs $5,000 and your perception was, it should be $30 to $40. Why? Because it's an app, right? It's just a hearing aid. Then you're probably going to say no and you're going to hang up the phone, right? But what if I did this? What if I changed this a little bit? What if I said, this app, number one, is fully integrated with your OMS? Does that increase the value? I think so. What about number two? What if I told you that the app included a strategy call every single month to talk about the numbers, the KPIs, what they meant, and action to take, strategy that you can deploy to improve those numbers in each category? There's a ton of value. How much do you currently pay for coaching? How much do you currently pay for training? I mean, this might be worth $250 to $500 alone a month for that monthly coaching. What if I told you then that we would give you a detailed script for your office that will take your providers through the treatment process and also train your phones team on how to improve treatment conversions, which of course improves your KPIs, right? What would that be worth? Quite a bit of money, right? What if then I told you that we were going to have a private day in your office where we were going to bring our entire team and we were going to teach the treatment process and we were going to help improve your rates, and told you that within the first 90 days, we could grow your practice 62%, which is what my practice grew in the first 90 days after deploying the strategies that I'm teaching you today. You would say there was a tremendous amount of value, probably around $5,000 in that, right? What if I told you too that I was going to give you all of my proven ad sets that have worked for our practice that grew us to 62%, including strategy, templates, blueprints, and ad copy, how to place it, all of that, and hand it over to you and you can deploy them. What is that worth? X amount of dollars, right? So all of a sudden now, this is no longer an app. This is a program. This is a system. This is something that will help you grow 62%, right? So if I said, hey, I've got an app, you're going to say, great, that's really cool. KPI app, no one's ever had that before. That's awesome, right? But what if I said I can grow your practice 62% in the first 90 days by doing this? Then if I talk to you about the price of $5,000, you're probably going to say, wow, that's actually a bargain. To grow 62%, which for some of you would be tens of thousands of dollars in the first 3 months, that would be a game changer in your practice. So our patients are going through the same exact process here. They hear this price, they think it's about a device, and they say no. Why? Because no value has been built. But what do you have to offer besides the device, right? You have your education, you have your treatment plan, you have your recommendations, your aftercare, all of these years of schooling. Why? Because if you tell them that you can improve clarity and background noise and help them understand conversations, reconnect with their grandkids, get their life back, help them live healthy, active adults, hear like maybe they were hearing 20 years ago rather than at the current age that they're at. If you talk about that, then $7,000 to get your life back is a bargain, right? But the problem is we've got it backwards. It's always price first, and I get it. It's on the minds of the consumer, and it's result last, right? What if we were able to flip those? So if you can build value and use a growth journey model, which of course educates them and nurtures them and brings them along and addresses some of these things and builds value and not necessarily price, but builds this program for them, for that patient, then they come in and they see that consistency with that. They're going to be much more likely to say, okay, fantastic, $7,000 is a bargain for all of this, all of what I'm getting, because you've built value, created an experience. You've shown them that you truly care about them, which I know you do. And you can show that care in a lot more places than just inside of your practice when you see them for the first time in the evaluation. So it's a really, really powerful model. I know this is a lot of information and we're going really quickly here, but if you ever want to get a hold of me, you can email me at eric.sorensen@paradigmgrowth.com. If you have any questions, I know we'll probably have some time. We're got about 15 minutes left at the end to go over some of these things, but we're covering a lot of ground, and it's kind of like drinking out of a fire hydrant, showing you all of these new thoughts and new strategies. And there's a lot more when it comes to this, like targeting, and we'll do that in a different webinar. So I don't want you to necessarily get caught up in this because I can send you some information. But we're gonna move on and talk a little bit about the 3 types of traffic and match that with what this growth model journey does. So really there's 3 types of traffic that you should be concerned with, right? Traffic that you control, traffic that you don't control, oh, sorry, let me switch screens here so you can see that, and traffic that you own. Now the goal with the model that I'm talking about is to get traffic that you own, right? Traffic that you control would be paid ads on Google or Facebook ads or Twitter or whatever it happens to be. Maybe you're running a display network or the video network or YouTube ad placement. That's traffic that you're influencing, that you are controlling to go to your landing page or your website or to call you, right? Traffic that you don't control, of course, is obvious, but traffic that you own is where the gold mine is. That's where the key to your success is going to be with all of this. And unfortunately, in the traditional model, if you've got ads out there on the online space and you have no way to capture that patient's information other than if they call you, which is traditionally what most are doing, then that is not traffic that you own. But the great thing about traffic you own is even if that patient doesn't call you, but you capture their information, you now have them forever. They have raised their hand saying, I have a problem. I want to solve this problem. I have this need and this challenge, and you might have a solution for me, right? But the problem is you haven't captured that information. So if they don't set up an appointment today or tomorrow or the next day, you have them for as long as they don't opt out, you have them for months to come to be able to remarket to them and to re-educate them and to always have them there in your pocket so you can influence and become the leader. You can send them newsletters each month. You can just continue to build that relationship until they are ready to come and set up an appointment. But you can only do that if you own that traffic, if you capture that information. So it's really powerful. So you really want this traffic that you own because that can be a big time game changer for you. Okay, so one more way that you can take this traffic that you own, or even traffic that you control, and convert it to traffic that you own through the growth journey model. One thing that's really important is anytime that you send anybody to your website or that you send them to your landing page, and I hope that you are not sending them to your website, that you deploy a strategy to send them to a page that's specific to getting them to set up an appointment with you, of course, here in your clinic. How do you like the clinic? It's fantastic, isn't it? I think I need to go to art school. Is once they go to your website, make sure that you have tracking code on every single one of these pages, because what you want to do is you want to remarket to them, right? So once they've clicked through, you want to make sure that you're continually marketing to them through retargeting. We see anywhere from 20 to 30% conversion rates from retargeting alone. It is a powerful program because you're talking about a patient that's shown interest, that's raised their hand saying, hey, I want to treat hearing loss. I have a problem. I need to solve it, whatever that may be. And if they go to your website or if they go to the landing page that you've created and they don't call or maybe they don't enter their information, you can remarket to them. We usually do it for 2 to 4 weeks. 4 weeks, I think, is the sweet spot for that. So they're constantly seeing your ad throughout their web experience. The only time that this is a disadvantage is if you're ever shopping for, say, shoes for your wife, and you go in and type the type of shoes that she actually likes, and you're looking at different styles, and of course she's mentioned to you that she does like this particular type of shoes, and you kind of forget about it, and a couple of days later you get back on your computer and start looking again. Well, in the meantime, your wife has also gone on your computer and she's looked up something non-related to shoes, but all of a sudden she starts seeing retargeting on the exact shoe that she wants. Now she knows what she's getting for Christmas. So you have to be really careful with retargeting because it can work against you and it can give away everything that you're looking for online to buy your wife for Christmas. So one little caveat on that. However, outside of that, it is a powerful tool. Excuse me, go back here. It's a powerful tool to be able to get that interest and remind them of their interest over and over so that they come back and fill out the landing page or call you and set up an appointment at your clinic. Okay, so that's a critical step. So just a couple of more things that I want to cover, and then we'll have just a few minutes, probably about 5 minutes for questions. And I want to talk to you about demographics. So just a few years ago when I was first in the ad agency world, all we had were demographic information and geographic information, right? We wanted to hit the right target based on age, maybe based on income. We also wanted to hit the right geographical area, and that was really important. And that's all we really had. However, that's not the most effective way to reach your audience. Now, of course, that's the foundational period. You want to make sure that you're reaching active adults, maybe 65 plus or 55 plus, whatever your target happens to be in your market, and it slightly changes from market to market. What you really want to target is behavior. And the great thing is there's so many awesome online tools to target behavioral traffic, right? So you really want to not only know the demographics, but you want to know the likes, the dislikes. You want to dive deep into the mind of your consumer and find out what their challenges are, find out what their hopes, their dreams, their thoughts, their desires, what they struggle with. Today, you can get as detailed as you want online and learn actual behaviors of your demographics. At the ad agency, we used to do these focus groups, and we would bring people in and we would ask them questions, and we would obviously give them surveys as well. And that was great, but what we found that observing a consumer behavior was so much more powerful, because sometimes they don't necessarily know what they want. And sometimes you have to know what they want before they even know what they want. And the key to that is you. You have knowledge of your patient behavior, and that is a gold mine. You know your patients better than anybody else. You know why they come in. And in fact, when we start with a new client, one of the first things I ask our clinics are, and those of you that are clients that are on this webinar, you know this, is what motivates your patients to come in? What is it? What's the reason? What's the real reason why they come in? What is motivating them to finally call you now? And as you go through the patient process, and you've done this hundreds, if not thousands of times, you have a wealth of knowledge of behaviors, right? Why did they come in? Take the top 3 for now and reverse engineer that journey and say, okay, if the number one reason why a patient is coming in to my office is because they may be 55 or 60 or 65 years old, but they're still working and they're having trouble hearing conversations in the conference room during meetings. They're having trouble talking on the phone to clients or whatever job that they're in, and it's hurting their ability to do their job effectively. For example, if that's the number one thing, and that's going to be limited because you're probably talking about this challenge in some of the bigger cities, but if that's the challenge, then you know that you need to target that behavior. You need to target active adults that are still working, that still have careers, and you can do all of that online. That's just one tiny example, and that may not be irrelevant to the type of challenges that you have, but just know that your knowledge of patient behavior, that is a gold mine, and you can use that to target the right people. There's some really good strategies, and I know we covered a lot of ground here today, but these are powerful strategies that can make a significant difference in your business. So we're going to take just a couple of questions here. Okay, question number 1 is, tell me a little bit more about automation and how that factors in and how I can get set up with an automation program. So automation is a way to automatically deliver these touch points throughout every step of the patient journey. So not only just when they're leads or prospects and opportunities, but also every single step all the way till their warranty is expired and even beyond. So you can not only deliver these important touch points for your patients or to your patients, but you can also at the beginning of their journey, I should say, but you can also do that throughout the life of their journey. And there's automation systems out there. We, of course, have an automation system if you want to talk to us about that. There's other ones that you can use like Infusionsoft or ActiveCampaign. There are some that are out there, but it's important that you use an automation system that's specific to hearing healthcare, because that will really be the difference of somebody that actually knows the process of your patients. So, okay, question number 2. How do I know what my ad spend needs to be for digital marketing? So you're going to find that in the future that digital marketing ad spend is going to be, if you look at your overall budget, I don't know what it is right now, if it's 20 or 30% or 40%, it's going to be shifting to a much higher number in the future, because you're talking about baby boomers that are now retiring, of course, that are more educated online. The World War II generation, they weren't necessarily they didn't have the technology. They didn't grow up with the technology, I should say, and so that was a little bit of challenging. But now you've got baby boomers who understand and have grown up with apps and online presence, and they're more comfortable online. You're going to be shifting more dollars to online spend because that's where the audience will be, right? So it may be 20, 30% of your budget, but you're going to see that's going to need to be bigger as you grow your patient base and as they get older too. So one of the things that's really important about that is that you follow where the results are. So if you're still getting results off of newspaper or direct mail, and maybe you're only getting 20-30% results off of online, then maybe you should stay there. We analyze our clients from a full 360-degree spectrum and make recommendations and say, okay, this is how much you need to spend on digital, and this is the reason why you need to, and this is how much you need to spend on traditional. There is a little bit of testing that needs to go on. But the great thing about the digital space is you can throw a wide net to so many more patients for a lot less money than you can in a newspaper ad or a direct mail piece, for 70, 80 cents a piece. So great question. We're out of time. That's all the time we have today. Again, email me, eric.sorensen@paradigmgrowth.com. Reach out to us. You can actually go on our website, as you see here, and click learn more if you want more information, and we'll actually send you more information about some of these things. Also, follow us on Facebook as well, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. We'll be sending you more information on future webinars that we're going to keep diving deep into some of these things on the digital space, and we'll also obviously move to the other success pillars that we have. That's a great way to learn more about these programs and how they can help you. And feel free to reach out to myself or to Nick, and we'll be able to be happy to have a conversation with you. So thank you so much for coming. It's been an awesome hour that we've been able to spend together. We're super excited for a lot of great things that are happening in hearing healthcare. We're so excited to bring some innovations and technology and some new strategy to be able to help raise the level of how we're speaking to patients throughout the digital space. So thanks again, and we hope you guys enjoyed it. See ya.